All right. Thanks for joining Huckleberry's Outdoor Adventures, aka HOA. So, I talked a little bit about in our last episode that you kind of wanted to get into some deeper thinking when it comes to your sleep systems when you're starting out. And I kind of thought about it a bit last night when I made the episode and thought this morning that maybe I would delve in a little bit deeper into that. So, we're going to start with sleeping systems. Some things to consider. So when you're testing out or trying to find the right sleeping system, there are a lot of things that you need to consider that you might not think of right away. So I'm going to give you a list of things that you might want to consider, and then I'll kind of give you a list of some of the top 10 or so products in that area. So with sleeping bags, there's a few things, right? I mean, first, I think, and probably most important, is the climate of where you're going to be camping. A lot of people actually have a couple different sleeping bags to bring to certain types of climate. So Michigan ranges from, one day you could be negative 10 degrees in the winter. The next day, you could be 40, 50 in the winter, during the day. So, and in the summer, it could range from this is in the spring/summer. It can range from 20 some degrees to 45 degrees at night. So you want to make sure that you're covered. I think the most important thing to know is when you're looking at temperature ratings on sleeping bags, that's a survival rating, not a comfort rating. So if it says 20 degrees, that means you will live in a 20 degrees with that bag. It's also important to know that a lot of these ratings on the typical Walmart bags or some of the cheaper bags, they're not like certified by anybody. They're rated from that company. So there's no way to really guarantee that that's going to be what the rating is actually giving you. For instance, if you were to buy like a bag from Walmart and it says it's a 30-degree bag, well, there's nothing that really certifies that. No company that Walmart is going through that it will actually, certify that as a 30-degree bag. So you want to take that into consideration. And usually the way that I do it is I'll go 20 to 30 degrees colder when I'm looking for a bag than I know I'll be sleeping in. So if, for instance, I know that the coldest it's going to typically get where I live is, and in the seasons that I'll be camping, is 30 degrees, then I'll go for maybe a 0 degree. And what that does is that compensates for any colder climates maybe that I might encounter. It also compensate for the stretching of the truth and, again, the comfort rating. So these aren't comfort ratings, they're survival ratings. So if I'm going to survive at 30 degrees, then I'm going to do much better with a 0 degree bag instead of a 30 degree bag at 30 degrees. Okay. So that is something that you want to think about. Material is also a thing, and we'll get to that in a second. But also size. Well, what do you, depending on your size, I'm a big guy, about 5'10", but depending on your height, you might need a longer bag. They do make longer bags. If you're a bigger guy, you're going to need a wider bag. And to be quite honest, mummy bags are not great for bigger, wider guys like me because they don't make them that wide. I mean, they do, but I'm also like a sprawler. So something to consider when you're looking, instead of just buying the cool bag that says it's great, is to either try them out if you can, or really do your research. And this is why I'm doing this, is to kind of help you get past that part. So we covered climate. And now we're going to go into size. Again, your height, your width matter. Take that into account. What you're camping in matters. You could do an air mattress if you're in a giant tent. You could do an air mattress if you're car camping. And those tend to be a little bit more comfortable. I need the compact roll-up space of a sleeping pad. And I like how small they are. You can throw them everywhere. So I'm personally looking at air sleeping pads. You could do foam roll-up pads. They do roll up bigger. They take up more space. I think they end to trap air better. Trap air better inside the pockets of the foam to keep you a little bit warmer. But it really depends on the quality of the product too. So we'll get into sizes and shapes because that's important too. For bigger guys, you're going to want something wider. But for everybody else, it's got kind of a normal everyday shape. One of the sleeping bags you can go with is a mummy bag. Mummy are a body hugging, narrow foot box, narrow leg, and narrow chest bag. So they hug to the contours of your body. They're typically the most warm because they trap that air in and there's no way for that air to escape. But they're not good if you like to sprawl. And if you like the mummy, but you're like, man, this is just too tight, they also make relaxed mummies that give you a little bit of extra room. If the mummies just really aren't doing that and you want something a little bit bigger, they do make a semi-rectangular. And that's got like a tapered, let's say, a flat bottom, and it kind of tapers up with a more narrow foot box, leg box. And then as you get up to the chest, it gets wider. That would be a good thing to look into if you're kind of like not into the mummy, you don't want to be strangled or you get claustrophobic, but you still want it to be kind of tighter. That would be good. That's close. It doesn't follow it right, to every shape and nook and cranny. And then we're going to get to rectangular. It's typically rectangular bags are the same width at the foot box as they are at your chest. Usually the chest is the widest point in the bag. So that is the most comfortable for bigger guys is a rectangular bag. Then they typically they zip down on both sides and they can be used as a comforter as well. So if it gets really hot, you can do that, or you can share with a partner. The way that mine works is I can actually zip up to my wife's bag and make it into a large, like double bag, basically, which brings us to the double bag. Double bag is basically two rectangular bags side by side. It's used typically for two people, but if you like the comforter and you like the comforter on the bottom and on the top, and you love to sprawl, rectangular or double bag would be your thing. The worst things about rectangular and double bags is that you typically do lose heat out of those bags. There are pockets for the air, the warm air to escape out of that bag. So as you move, toss, and turn, that air does escape, which is the major benefit to having a closed system like a mummy bag. So something to consider when you're buying a bag, if you can find a bag that has kind of like your bungee cordage at the top, that you can kind of close it around you, and then you can still sprawl, that would be something I would recommend. I do have that on my bag. I think I had the Big Agnes Echo Parks. It's a 20 degree synthetic bag, and they do have an area just above your chest that you can kind of close in a little bit. So those are a couple types. They do make a bunch of other little branch off types of sizes, but those are the main ones. Those are the ones you have to worry about. So the next we'll move down to is like your material. And full disclosure, I copied and pasted material from REI. This is just a helpful tip, and I'll just read it out to you. And it seemed like everything was pretty informative. So we'll start with the down insulation. It's a common misconception is that down insulation is actually made from the feathers of a bird. Down insulation is actually the plumage found underneath the exterior feathers on waterfowl, such as like ducks, geese, and consists of the soft, fluffy, wispy filaments. Some products use a blend of down and feathers, but by definition, down is different than feathers. Down insulates by trapping the air and is prized for being light, easy to compress, long-lasting, and breathable. It's the insulation of choice in cold, dry conditions or whenever reducing weight and saving space are top priorities. Down insulation has typically been sourced from geese. However, many manufacturers switched to duck down in recent years due to the cost of goose down. All testing and performance standards are the same for duck and goose down, so either way you can be assured that you're getting a high-quality product. However, you'll find that goose down is often still used in the highest end products because it can reach a higher fill power rating than duck down. Fill power is the term used to measure down's ability to loft and thus trap heat. It is calculated by how many cubic inches 1 ounce of down can fill in a testing device. For example, 600 fill power down means that 1 ounce of down fills a 600 cubic inch space. Premium goose down can reach 900 fill power and potentially even higher. Duck down can achieve fill power ratings no higher than 750 to 800. The advantage of higher fill power down is that sleeping bags and jackets require less down to fill and can achieve a certain temperature rating. Less down equals a lighter product. So, a sleeping bag rated for 20 degrees Fahrenheit with a 700 fill power down will be lighter than a 20 degree bag using 600 fill power down. Assuming that the fabrics and the other features are comparable in weight. The most common criticism of down insulation is its tendency to clump up and lose loft when it gets wet, thereby losing its insulation properties. Proprietary technologies have been developed over the years to treat down at a microscopic level. With a water-resistant application, this treatment allows down to resist light moisture without compromising loft. However, if submerged in water or exposed in heavy rain, even treated down will still get wet, so do your best to keep down items dry. That is a known con of having down, is if you're in a wet climate or it rains a lot in your area and your bag's touching the ground, it's going to soak up that water. So that is something you want to think about. Moving into pros and cons. Pros, it's higher warmth to weight ratio than synthetic. It's very compressible, very durable. With the proper care, it can last for decades. Cons, it loses its insulating power when it gets wet, and it takes a long, long time to dry. Cleaning down requires special care. You can't just throw it in the dryer. And it's not hypoallergenic. So if you have any kind of allergies where you need it to be hypoallergenic, that might be something you want to consider. And it is also quite a bit more expensive than synthetics. So with that being said, we're going to move to synthetic insulation. Synthetic is typically made of polyester. Synthetic fill is quick drying and insulates even if wet, something down actually struggles to do. It also tends to be less expensive than down insulation, and it is durable and hypoallergenic. There are many competing brand types for synthetic insulations, which can make shopping a little confusing. A more relevant distinction is knowing whether a synthetic insulator is short staple or continuous filament. Short staple insulations feature short strands of fine denier filaments that are densely packed to minimize heat loss. This makes sleeping bags and jackets feel soft and flexible, much like down-filled products, and allows for great compressibility. They are, however, a bit less durable than continuous filament, and the insulation can move around a bit to create cold spots. Continuous filament insulations use a thicker continuous filament that is lofty, strong, and durable. They tend to have stiffer feel and are less compressible than short staple insulations, but they tend to stay in place, so they're less likely to create cold spots. The pros for this would be they are very water resistant and continues to insulate even when wet. They're hypoallergenic and less expensive than down. The cons are that they are heavier and bulkier than down insulation. They offer less warmth for its weight than down, and they are less durable than down. Insulating power gets reduced each time the bag is stuffed into a stuff sack. And then we have down/synthetic blends. Some manufacturers are making sleeping bags and jackets with a combination of water-resistant down and synthetic blend. This hybrid construction can provide the benefits of both materials while limiting each material's imperfections. In some cases, the two types of insulations are blended together throughout the sleeping bag. In others, the insulation may be in different locations. For example, durable synthetic on the bottom of the sleeping bag and then a lofty down on the top. The pros are lighter weight and more compressible than synthetic alone. They're more water resistant than down alone and less expensive than down alone. The cons are they're heavier and bulkier than down alone, less water resistant than synthetic alone, and more expensive than synthetic alone. Lots of information there. And I tried to say it as quick as I could, get through it all. And then I kind of looked at some top bags just to get you in the right area. So one of them is Big Agnes. They have been known for integrated sleep systems. That's one of them that I have. Again, I have the Big Echo 20 degree, I believe, and that has an integrated sleep system with the Big Agnes Repeat SL pad. They're both rated for 20 degrees. The pad has a R value of 4.5, so they work really well together. The bottom of the Echo Park actually has webbing to fit inside the pad so that the sleeping bag doesn't slip around on the pad and it's just like a little bed area. They do have other sizes, different types. They do make a down option. And then we go into REI. REI does make their own more budget-friendly sleeping bags, and REI has had a lot of hit products in the past, so I usually try to stay away from store brand products. And some of them are misses, but REI seems to have a couple decent ones. I mean, they have some decent tents. Their REI camp chairs have been a hit. So I would take a look at them, do your research on that as well. Thermarest, very, very popular sleeping pad platform. They specialize in cold weather sleeping bags and quilts. I'm sorry, pad. I meant bag. Sea to Summit's also known for their cold weather bags. They are versatile, lightweight. Nemo, very, very popular for making their cold weather bags. They typically have a lot of innovative designs. I really like Nemo a lot. I've had a few of their products and I've had a lot of good luck with them. I do carry a Nemo Dagger 2-person tent, and that is my typical overland tent if I'm staying one night, and I really, really like it. It's very durable, it's well thought out, it's super easy to put together by yourself, so I do stand by this Nemo stuff. They seem well, all right? Another bag is Marmont. They're good for winter camping, and they have some high-quality insulation. Kelty is a very good all-around bag as well. They do make more budget-friendly options for campers in the bag and tent platforms. Then you get into like Mountain Hardwear, Feathered Friends, and Western Mountaineering. And I'm not sure about Western Mountaineering, but I think Mountain Hardwear and Feathered Friends are a little bit more premium. So if you're looking for that, usually you won't need it when you do the typical overlanding thing. And there are some other things you can do to stay warm that I would say that you don't need to go super expensive. I think max that you should ever pay for a sleeping bag when you overland. I mean, if you're not backpacking and you're not hitting extreme colds, overlanding, you have a lot more room to take more stuff like a diesel heater, heat pads, things like that. You could even do a battery powered heat blanket. A lot of people do that. You can get away with more warmth in there. You don't need anything, I would say, over $250. I think ours were about 200 even, and we had like a nice discount that brought them down to like 150. There's no reason. And you could probably even argue that you don't need anything that big. For me, that was just it was the perfect system because I also wanted to hammock camp. So being able to have a all-in-one system with a sleeping bag fitting onto a sleeping pad and being able to keep that in a hammock so that it wouldn't slide and roll around. You know, if you've ever slept in a hammock and you have a sleeping pad and your sleeping bag, you tend to slide. So that was my main thought, and it tends to work out great. So it's probably the only reason I went that expensive, other than the fact that, as you well know, I'm a gear guy. I want to pay once, and I don't want to be buying another sleeping bag every couple of years. This 20 degree works well for us. Keeps us warm when it's really cold, and when it's really hot, you just uncover yourself, and you don't have a bunch of insulation under you that's keeping you really warm. It's just the pad, and the pad will typically only stay as warm as the top is. So, all right, so that covers that pretty well. I think we did some good stuff in there. Let's go back for just a second now that we're out through all the insulation, and we're going to go back to the pads. I wanted to go back over some of the 10 pads that were better and talk a little bit more about the pads. Just FYI, and we'll go, if you're a side sleeper, the good thing about these air pads is a lot of them will actually still support you. I have the Big Agnes Repeat SL. It's like a 4.5 to 4.8 R value. When you're looking at these pads, you kind of look at the beam design, or the way that they stitched for the air columns pockets. Some of them have kind of like a hexagonal stitch. Some of them have like an I-beam. Mine has like an I-beam kind of design. It's just very long straight tubes. And depending on how that stitches, it can affect how the air is stored for comfort, and also insulation and durability, I suppose. But as far as mine is concerned, I let out a little bit of air. I blow it up all the way, and then I lay in it, and I let out a little bit of air till I can sleep on my side, and the sides kind of hug me a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not sinking and touching the ground. So I full disclosure, I'm like 350 pounds. I sleep in this pad on my side, and I don't touch the ground. So, and it's comfortable. So I mean, I recommend the Big Agnes Repeat. But if you can, I would strongly recommend you go to an REI or an outfitter store that has test products out and sleep in these, because that Big Agnes might not be comfortable for you. You might want one of the Nemos, the Thermarest. I hear a lot of good stuff about the Thermarest, and Exped. You hear a lot of good about Exped, Thermarest, Big Agnes, and even REI's got a couple of them too. Nemo Tensor. The Tensors are really popular. And then I think there's a Climate. I think that's spelled with a K. It's KLYMIT. Climate. Those are also really good. These are all brands that you can look up, do your research, and then if you look at REI, you can actually go in. They have a platform that you can go up to, and it has a bunch of different sleeping pads in there. And that's where you can try out and see which one's more comfortable for you, because there will be some that you're like, oh, this feels horrible. This isn't giving me enough comfort. You know, it's a lot like beds at home. You know, you might like foam. Someone might hate foam and want spring. So this is all just giving you guys something to consider. I mean, this is the main part of your sleeping system. Pillows are I think the pillows are just too wide of a section to even like try to cover. Like, if you're into hiking, backpacking, yeah, we could talk about the best hiking, backpacking pillows, but if you're overlanding, you probably have the space for your home pillows. And if that's the case, then you're better off with your home pillow half the time. I just started bringing my home pillow, and my sleep quality improved quite a bit. So that is what I will personally be doing from now on. So again, climate, size, how you sleep, side sleeper, sprawling, which will determine the compatibility or the space that you will need. And then if you're very pack friendly, like I am with my FJ, I got to make sure it doesn't take a lot of space up. See how it rolls up in space. Some foam sleeping pads are going to roll up much wider than these air sleeping pads. So, I mean, and the spacing also translates into sleeping bags too. I mean, your down bags are going to pack down a lot smaller than your synthetic bags. They're also going to cost way more. And for the typical climates that we sleep in when we're overlanding, down bags are honestly just not worth it unless you have the extra money. And if you're camping in very cold weather and don't plan to use any type of heat, so if you don't have a battery powered heated blanket, or you don't have a diesel heater, or if you're not using a big buddy or a buddy heater safely, then that's something you might want to consider using a down mummy bag. But otherwise, if you plan on having any of these other systems anytime, then yeah, definitely I wouldn't go with anything that crazy and expensive. So, I mean, what you can typically expect for a quality, long-lasting sleeping pad, you're looking at $100 to $200. Amazon does have sleeping pads. If you just want something quick and dirty, go get an Amazon Basics one. You'll find out real quick if you like it or don't. I would say, try to see if you could find an R value on it. Look at the dimensions of it first. Even if it is cheap, check your dimensions. I'm, I want to say about 50 inches from shoulder to shoulder, and my sleeping pad is, I have the wide version of the Repeat SL. So I actually have the widest version without going into a double, which is almost my exact width from shoulder to shoulder across. So if I was to buy the regular sized Repeat SL, my shoulders would be hanging off the sides of it. So it's something that you want to consider. It's going to be very important to your sleep comfort, and you're going to be a lot colder if your shoulders are actually in contact with the ground, which doesn't insulate well. Now, another thing that you can do, I've heard some people doing it, is actually put like some kind of cloth or foam underneath your sleeping area to help insulate from the ground. I personally don't do that. I understand why, but it's not needed for me because I sleep on the pad. But I can see where it's going. Also, special throw-in recommendation here is, if these bags seem pretty expensive and you're not really sure and you want something durable that works and that isn't, just one temperature, there's also one other option. I'll throw this back to my buddy from Botches Off-Road that we do the podcast with. He's recommended military surplus bags. He used them when he was in the service, and he still uses them now. He cot camps, and he cot camps in like a tent, and he uses a military surplus bag. They have different layers that you can take on and off, and he says that they are very, very warm, and you can sleep in all temperatures with them. So you can get military surplus bags for typically, I think, around $100 or under $100. Check eBay. That would be another really good option for you. And as far as sleep systems go, I guess a cot would be considered one of the beds that you could use instead of a pad. It's just something else to consider, because if you're in a 2-person tent like a Nemo Dagger, you're not going to fit a cot into that. So if you're using a large tent, maybe a cot or a large sleeping mattress would work, like air mattress. But otherwise, that's a sleeping pad. It's a sleeping pad world. I don't know. It's going to be like that for a lot of people who camp. So, all right. I threw a lot of information at you on just a couple of different things. So hopefully you can kind of, if you need to go back and re-listen to a certain part of this, because I kind of talked pretty quick to get through it, feel free. If you have any more questions about either what I said today in this episode or something else you want me to cover like this, let me know. I would be more than happy to delve in a little bit deeper. I just kind of got a bug up my butt this morning that I wanted to put this out. So, all right, we will talk to you guys later.